Ty. We are broadcasting to the world Week 11 college football preview and picks. College football preview and picks.
Let's do it in 3, in 2. College football, Week 11. Dan Rubenstein, how are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm feeling good, Ty. I'm feeling real good. How are you?
I can't believe we're at college football Week 11. I said it last week. I say it again this week. Things are getting interesting. We've got a lot to discuss here on the College Football Week 11 Preview podcast. We're going to help you go through the big dog games, as we call them here. We're going to talk through the optimal quads. We've got a couple different versions of said quads that we'll talk through and explain exactly what that means. I've, of course, got my bulletproof picks that we will talk through a little bit later on in the episode, and we've got a multitude of things in between. I am excited to be here with you.
Oh, my God, Ty, this is the best. We only have like 14 or 15 of these all year. I do have a nickname, Ty. You ready?
Of course you do. What is it?
Okay, so I was going – first I thought send 'em packing Saturday because there is an element to this week's matchups where it's just like, oh, this team has hope? Could they turn things around, or are they in the playoff? And I think this week there's enough where you're just like, this is the 1-2-3 Cancun of this season, right? That if you don't make it happen this week,
right?
We have Michigan finally playing a huge team to finally see what they have, or Penn State holding on to hope, right? And just like, well, we should beat this team, and if we don't, I don't know if this season's happening. I have this because Cancun starts with a C and not an S as Sayulita Saturday. Sayulita, popular surf town in Mexico. That's the sound that I could come up with for alliteration. Sayulita, S-A-Y-U-L-I-T-A, Saturday. Where can you get that kind of nonsense? Nowhere.
Nowhere else.
But here.
Nowhere else in the college football ether can you find Sayulita?
Sayulita, S-A-Y-U-L-I-T-A.
Okay. Well, from your mouth to God's ears.
Yes.
College football Week 11 will be interesting, to say the absolute very least. Give us a call as you are watching the games at 855-VERBAL-3. Leave a message on the voicemail line. We will play those as part of our campfire, which we record at midnight every Saturday. Of course, you could go on out to verballers.com if you want access to the ad-free episodes, the full version of the Monday episodes, the Patreon bonus perks that are plentiful. You can access our Discord, take part in that conversation all throughout the day on Saturday. And last but certainly not least, you get access to Run the Board. I have something I'd like to talk about with Run the Board, Dan.
Please, we got to get to games, but let's get Run the Board.
Run the Board is our pick'em game. It goes all throughout the season and week to week. We've got great, fabulous prizes that people play for. Even if you just want to jump in now, the only way you can play that game is by playing out at Verballers, or signing up at verballers.com.
Go through that slowly. Verballers.com. VERBALLERS.com to support the show and prove your medal picking games.
That is right. So with that being said, I want to give a shout out to Paul, who won our Week 10 Pick'em contest.
Oh, man, football.
He doesn't know this yet, but he is also getting an additional prize to what he got last week in the form of a credit to our friends over at Pristine Auction, Dan.
Yeah, newly supporting the show themselves. Love it.
Every week, Pristine Auction is going to be presenting our Dude Alert segment that we do at the end of a college football week. They are also going to be giving out fabulous prizes as part of our Run the Board Pick'em contest. This week's winner gets a $100 credit to go out and buy something cool. The website is awesome. You and I are kind of scouring the site now, trying to figure out what's going to go in the backdrop. I am very torn between a Saquon Barkley helmet and a Rocket Ishmael helmet. My favorite player of all time for one team, my favorite player of all time for another.
I would go hipster, go the other way and get the other Ishmael. Ragbib?
Ragib Rocket Ishmael.
Ragib Rocket. So what was the other Ishmael for Syracuse?
You're thinking of the missile. Yeah.
So that's what I want. That's what I want you to get.
No. We're probably either going to go Rocket or Saquon. We'll figure that out in due time. Anyway, Pristine Auction, welcome aboard.
Suleiman, the bomb, Ishmael.
Welcome aboard Pristine Auction, your ultimate destination for sports memorabilia. Your bids start at $1. Head on out to pristineauction.com. Use the code SOLID for $10 off your first win, Dan Rubenstein. Shall we get to our college football Week 11 picks?
Yes, Suleiman was UTEP. It's Quadri Ishmael.
Quadri Ishmael, of course.
Okay, let's go.
Dan, time, help. I need picks of the week.
Big games this week, man.
Sorry for that.
That was a
just
little
guttural moment for me. Yeah,
a little
huge
guttural.
games.
Yeah. Let's start with the weather. Yeah.
Let's.
Dan, Ty November is still with us. No messing around. We're going to start with the regions of concern. And we're looking again right at you. Yeah, Pac-12 land in the Pacific Northwest could be a little showery for the Huskies taking on Utah. The Southeast could be showery too, a little soggy across Dixieland. But in the Northeast, Big Ten weather is sunny this week and a little chilly. Wear your sweater to the Stripe Out and Happy Valley against Michigan.
Thank you to our friend Tim Buckley for delivering a pitch-perfect weather forecast as he does every week here on the preview episode. We appreciate it. Also, full disclosure, I was stalling there. I forgot Quadri.
Yeah.
Was the first name for the missile. How dare I?
I'm a kind of elite podcaster and Googler at the same time.
Yeah.
Not to pat myself on the back and strain an arm too heavy, but I'm pretty good.
It's fine. It's fine. Anyway, first big dog of the week. You heard Tim mention it in the weather forecast. It is Penn State. It is Michigan. Michigan
In State
is
College.
Michigan is a 4.5 point, 5 point, 5.5 point. It really depends where you look. I suspect by the time the game kicks off, it's going to change a couple times. This is a 12 noon game on Fox at Penn State. It has been a long time since Michigan played a top 50 team, Dan. I think you were still living in New York the last time it happened.
Yeah, Michigan just beat up on 3 different high schools in my area. I'm not sure if Glenbrook South never had a chance against Michigan. Niles North, pretty decent fight for a quarter there. Yeah, it's been a minute.
It has been a minute. So look, you run in Michigan circles, don't you?
I do.
You run in Michigan circles. Has there been a lot of trolling with they're only good because of the sign stealing? That type of thing?
From me to them?
Not from you to them, but have they referenced it? Some of the Michigan people that you know, like, what is the vibe there?
People ask me what I think is going to happen. And I say, they're probably going to deport Jim Harbaugh. And they like, what? And I was like, that's actually, if you look in the bylaws in the Big Ten, he's going to end up in Croatia for some reason. No, I have no. They asked me. That's what they asked me. I say, I don't know what's going to happen. The Big Ten is involved. The NCAA is involved. There have been statements saying that like there has been no connection to Jim Harbaugh. Like there's all sorts of stuff that's going on with the Connor Stallions has resigned, and he is also a failed vacuum repairman, digital vacuum repairman. I don't know.
With like a 2.8 seller rating out on Amazon.
I was sincerely hoping that he was going to be like a wunderkind of a vacuum repair person. Be like, man, this guy's gotten it all figured out. Signals, Hoovers. So that's what people ask me. I have no idea what's going to happen. Obviously, it's a rule that's been clearly broken, and there are competitive implications. But now there's also a story. I said our friend Richard Johnson that Michigan signals were given to Purdue from Rutgers and Ohio State. Richard's been breaking a lot and getting some scoops on that, but there was no indication that it was advanced scouting. So I don't know. That's the question I'm asked, and that's the answer I give. They're like, I don't know. It seems like they did a bad thing, but who knows if it operated in some sort of gray area because Jim Harbaugh was the only coach in America who didn't know that it was happening. I don't know. So yes, that has been the vibe. And then the Michigan fans specifically who pay a lot of attention be like, there's nothing to see here. This is insane. This is
Nothing
a
to see
non-story.
here. Everybody
A
does
big nothing burger.
Everybody does it.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this though, because we're recording this on Wednesday at noon Eastern, and there's a lot of movement on the story. Frankly, the Big Ten potentially seeking to punish either the Michigan football program or Jim Harbaugh more directly. By the time this game kicks off, there could be something more that happens on this front. Now, the numbers tell me in my little model, which take it with a grain of salt, my model says 7.5 in favor of Michigan here. And, we've seen it 4.5, 5, 6, like all across the spectrum here in the college football world, depending on your model, depending on what you believe to be true. Michigan is favored pretty much across the board. My question is to you, if that punitive action, let's say, does come down from the Big Ten, and if Jim Harbaugh does not coach this game, which I don't think is likely, but does that move the point spread in your mind?
Maybe a little. I mean, he didn't coach, the first 3 games of the season in their very much lacking non-conference portion of their schedule. And Michigan didn't seem to score as much, but that could just be it was early on in the season and they were sort of getting their sea legs under them. Maybe a little bit. I don't think it changes much at this point in the season, especially if he's prepping all week and game planning all week with these coaches. The plan will be in place. Sure, there might be some fourth down decision making or field goal, here, go for it. There's some of that stuff and timeout timing, but no, I don't think it's dramatically going to change much.
Okay. So what's your pick here?
I'm picking Michigan. I'm picking Michigan to win because while I was impressed with Drew Aller taking steps forward on the road against Maryland last week and throwing the ball downfield, I've watched enough really good quarterbacks this year across this great land, and I see a clear difference between those quarterbacks and Drew Aller. And you combine that with Penn State's offense against Ohio State, Penn State's general performance in these huge Big Ten matchups under James Franklin. This is a winter wonder game to me. That Penn State receivers might not be as bad as people said they were after the Ohio State matchup, but I don't think there's star power there. And I think if you're beating Michigan, 1, you're probably turning over J.J. McCarthy. Penn State absolutely can do that. But 2, you need to push these very, very good Michigan corners on islands around a little bit. And whether that's, physically winning 50-50 balls down the field, whatever it is, I just don't think Penn State, because of their lack of rushing attack or dangerous rushing attack, there's a number that Penn State needs to hit to win this game, right? 24, 28. Michigan hasn't played anybody, so we don't know exactly how they're going to respond playing against this Penn State defense. But they've won these last couple years. They've blown teams out this year. The one reference point, I guess, is the Nebraska game on the road against a pretty good defense, and they comfortably won that game. I just think J.J. McCarthy is operating on a level. The receivers and Colson Loveland are operating on a level. Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, they haven't been dominating like they did last year per se. But other than that, I think this Michigan defense is going to really hammer this Penn State offense to the point where, I think Penn State caps themselves at 14 or 17 points, and wow. I think Michigan can score 24, 28, so I'm taking Michigan on the road here. As difficult an environment as it will be, I'd probably like Penn State more if it were at night.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm going to give those points.
Man, I remember this game last year. I watched it at a bar with friends, and Penn State led that game 16-14 at half. And then Michigan went on a 27-3 run, something absurd.
Yeah.
Like that. They ended up winning 41-17. They rushed for over 400 yards. Penn State was not good on third downs. They finished with under 300 yards.
In Ann Arbor, yeah.
In Ann Arbor, but it was one of those deals where you're watching from wherever and you end up leaving before the end because it's the outcome is sort of sealed long before the final gun. My question is, if you believe Penn State can win and or cover, why? Why? Present your case. You didn't have a case. I don't have one either. I think the strongest case that I have heard out there is, who's Michigan played? They haven't played anybody. And objectively, Michigan hasn't played anybody.
Right.
Like I said at the top, they haven't played a top 50 team all season. The best offense they played was UNLV back in week 2. But Penn State being better than all of those other teams is still not a real argument.
Agree.
It's just, this is not a real argument for Penn State. Yes, Michigan has played bad teams. They've blown them all to smithereens. Their closest win was by 27 points. What more do you want? Right? What more does Michigan need to do to prove to people that they're a really good team? So there's that to me, which kind of bothers me, frankly. Also, I want to know, what is the actual matchup here? To your Winter Wonders point, what is the tendency? Who is the gravitational player? Who swings this in Penn State's direction?
Right.
I'd love for it to be Drew Aller. I would. But Drew Aller was 18 of 42 against Ohio State. I'd love for it to be Nick Singleton, but Nick Singleton's had one run, count it, one singular run of more than 20 yards this season through 10 weeks of the college football season. And on the receiver front, Keandre Lambert-Smith has 51 catches this season. The next closest wideout is Dante Cephas With 17, he's basically been invisible. The big name transfer, nowhere to be found. A third of the catches as the next closest. So this is all to say that if you believe Penn State's going to beat Michigan, you also believe that the offense just suddenly clicked against Maryland last week, and it's not going to be 4-yard crossers and dump-offs the entirety of this game against Michigan. Or maybe that the ground game is suddenly going to come back to life and get on track. The offense didn't suddenly change, Dan.
No, and this is an offense, by the way, 3rd and short, been terrible, right? So if it comes down to those short yardage moments against a good defense, Penn State has not shown itself to be built for those huge moments, whereas Michigan, again, playing nobody, but this is still a team. Believe whatever you want about how Michigan specifically won games these past few games, this past season, whatever, last year, whether they knew everybody's plays ahead of time. It's certainly easier if that were the case. You still got to go out and execute.
You got to go out and execute. And look, the offense did not suddenly change. I stand by that. The offense is freaking telegraphed. We know what's coming. They know what's coming.
Yeah.
They don't even need the signs. Just watch the replays. Go on YouTube.
Yeah.
We all know what's coming. So Michigan, in my view, is more than good enough to stop it. Maybe the biggest lead of all, perhaps we've buried it. James Franklin doesn't win these games.
No, he doesn't tend to, no.
Big game James. He doesn't win these games. And I say that as somebody who wants Penn State to win the game.
Yeah.
Michigan, to me, is still the class of the Big Ten. The controversy is a distraction. Despite all that, I think unlike Ohio State, Michigan does have a quarterback in J.J. McCarthy that scares me. I think it's all too much here. It's a very long way of saying Michigan wins this game 31-20.
I think he's so much better than Drew Aller. I just do. And
he's had more seasoning.
Yeah.
Right? And Drew Aller could get there, but Drew Aller has not been there thus far.
Well,
So we'll see. We'll see if he can get there at some point. This is still his first full season as a starter, but the results through 10 weeks of the season have not been good for Mike Yurcich, for the receiving core, or for the Aller hype, frankly.
Yeah. And if Mike Sanderstill and Will Johnson are pressing Penn State receivers, who's making them pay? No. Who is pushing them around? Who is getting deep? Who is getting a step on them?
No, I don't.
Unclear if that person exists in the 2 deep for Penn State. Yeah.
So we agree. Let's move on, shall we?
Let's.
Second big dog. 3:30 CBS. It's Tennessee minus 1.5 on the road at Mizzou. Something that I happened upon on social media that didn't occur to me. Next year, this is basically a playoff elimination game.
Next year, this is basically a playoff elimination. How so?
You got 2 teams that are kind of on the cusp.
Oh, I'm not specifically saying next year's Tennessee-Mizzou matchup. Okay.
Yeah. If this game were being played in 2024.
Yeah. 2 teams who have hung around, who've performed reasonably well against top-tier teams, have not beaten them in Mizzou's case. Yeah.
So I think that's interesting, just something to keep in mind. One thing that occurred to me while watching the game last week, the Mizzou-Georgia game, I've watched every Mizzou game this season. In its entirety.
They've been one of the 5 most entertaining and watchable programs this year, for sure.
I have watched every Mizzou game, almost more than I've watched Notre Dame and Penn State. And I attribute that to, we did the off-season show where we were trying to figure out, all right, what's the state of the program? What needs to happen for this team to level up? And I've just been really interested in them. And, they've, I think, done a really good job retooling the offense. They look together on offense, and I think they're a good team. They move the ball in Georgia. If not for Brady Cook, maybe throwing it directly to a lineman or sailing that pass late. Who knows what happens last week in Athens? I think you called out they basically played them to a draw.
They did.
They
Kirby
did.
talked about it. That he basically said Mizzou, especially on the ground, they weren't out scheming Georgia. They were just whipping them up front.
What is your lean here?
So it's a question of, does Georgia beat Mizzou twice, right? Is there a hangover effect? Is there a letdown effect? Because Mizzou, the players, the coaches, they knew they were right there with the Dogs. And so Tennessee, with a good defense coming in, Joe Milton who do they beat up on? UConn?
Yep.
So maybe some
UConn. Newfound
confidence, got some, shed some cobwebs, whatever. I like Mizzou better. I think Mizzou's a better team. And I know Tennessee beat Kentucky on the road, but otherwise on the road this year, I haven't loved them. So I think Mizzou's better. I really do. So I'm going with the Tigers here. I think this year's team is special enough that, look, Luther Burden got loose against Georgia enough. Theo Weese, like, they have the guys here. So this year's iteration of Mizzou with a kicker, too, was Harrison Mevis.
Harrison Mevis, yeah.
So if it's short, if it's tight, as this line implies, it likely will be. I'm going to give the nod to the home dog here. Even though I don't love Mizzou's defense all the time, I'm still going with the home dog here.
That's interesting. I thought you were going to go the other way with this one.
Yeah? Why? I've liked Tennessee this year. They're not great closers to me.
They aren't. And I'm on the fence, too, with this one. I'm not confident one way or the other. I think it's a close game. I think the point spread is right to be, what is it, 1.5, a point. You can find it a couple different ways depending where you look. I feel a big time letdown potentially coming for Mizzou after that Georgia game.
That's fine.
I don't know how there can't be. That was such a big game, and this is such an obvious letdown spot, even against Tennessee in its own right is a big time opponent coming to town. I also think there's a body blow theory.
Sure.
Haven't played that sound all year. Needed to wedge that in. It's a letdown body blow game against a running team, which to me is like the triple whammy. Those are the types of games that drive you crazy as a fan because you watch and the opponent keeps running and retaining possession, and it just sort of drains the life force out of you. It really does. And I hear what Mizzou fans are probably saying listening to this. Well, Georgia didn't run all over us.
I think every fan is skeptical of their own team at the same time.
Every
right?
fan's
like, I don't know. Things aren't going great. Yeah.
Missouri's defense did a fine job against Georgia, but this is a different matchup to me in a different situation. I like Mizzou maybe more than anybody on the planet, but I think they lose this game. I think this is a bad spot for them.
Okay.
I think it's a fun game. I think it's 35-30, something like that. And I think Mizzou finishes 9-3. I think they'll beat Florida and Arkansas to finish out the year. But I something about this spot to me, a week after Georgia.
By the way, look ahead spot for Tennessee.
I know.
They host Georgia next week. And I don't think Tennessee's looking past Mizzou. Mizzou is a very good team.
No. So something about this matchup a week after the Georgia game feels like a bad spot for Mizzou. So I'm going to go Tennessee minus the 1.5. Yeah.
Next.
Go to our final big dog here. Speaking of Georgia. 7 p.m. ESPN, Ole Miss at Georgia. Georgia favored by 10.5 points. Technically speaking, they haven't played since 2012, Dan.
What do you mean, technically speaking?
Technically, because the game in 2016 was vacated.
Oh, okay. So even then, they haven't played in 7 years or whatever.
Been a minute. Been a minute here. I saw this line, and instantly I was like, I got to pick Georgia. Gut instinct truly was Georgia lock of the week.
Okay.
So I did the responsible thing and said, wait a minute. I'm self-aware enough to realize that my picks this year have not been good. So I went back. I watched the Ole Miss A&M game from a week ago. I watched the Georgia-Mizzou game again because I love watching Mizzou games.
Okay.
The Dogs are obviously very, very good.
When was the last time people said that? Somebody randomly unaffiliated with Missouri football said, I love watching Mizzou games.
Never.
It's been a minute.
Never happened. Georgia, obviously very good. The defense, though, a good offense can score on this defense. And they made a few big plays where they pressured Brady Cook and he threw it to the lineman, or they sailed it, as I said before, late. That basically ended the game. But, the defense this year is not one that is generating a ton of pressure in the way that it has in the past. And I think we saw in spots a week ago that a team like Missouri can make them pay for it.
Okay.
They might be a little susceptible to, say, the quarterback scramble. We saw Brady Cook with some scrambles in that game. So my working theory is that Ole Miss can move the ball and score on Georgia. I think their offense is different but better slightly than Mizzou's, and I could see them scoring something like 24 to 28 points in this game.
Well, Georgia exclusively gives up 20 or 21 points. 21 to UAB, 20 to Auburn, 20 to Vandy, 20 to Florida, 21 to Mizzou. So you're in the ballpark, yeah.
24 to 28 is my working theory here. And
yeah.
so for me, the question then is how many stops can they get on Georgia? Because Georgia's offense has been forced to change a little bit with the Brock Bowers injury, but something else that occurs to you the more you watch Georgia's offense now is that the Bowers injury was basically a distraction from all the other good things that they've got on offense that people weren't talking about, like Dominic Lovett or Ra Thomas or Ladd McConkey or Dajuan Edwards.
Yeah.
Like Georgia fans in our YouTube comments were screaming this point for weeks on end. And it is true that maybe the offense is still underrated, that they've got so much there in the holster that we just we're not looking in the right spots because we're not first and foremost Georgia fans. Carson Beck might be full on great. His Heisman match dropped. Yeah, he's good. He's really good. So they're going to be able to move the ball and score on the Ole Miss defense. Statistically, even though Ole Miss's defense is on the level of Ole Miss's, I'm not buying it. I don't think they're that good. It reminds me a little bit of last year when the numbers were in the beginning of the year, like trying to convince us that they're a very good defense, and by the end they weren't. So this one to me, this is a long way of saying I'm going against my gut instinct. I think it's close to that number. I think it's 38-28 Georgia.
I'm going to take the points here just because if there is something we've learned that Georgia doesn't cover this year. Georgia has gotten a good amount of benefit of the doubt, and rightfully so. They just don't cover the number. I think Ole Miss can get a couple of stops in the red zone potentially, and because they have been good in the red zone this year. The interesting thing is both of these teams are coming off of survival games, right? That Georgia sort of survives Mizzou. Ole Miss certainly survives Texas A&M. And so what is the emotion like in the beginning of this game? What time is kickoff?
This is a 7 p.m. kickoff.
Oh, man. That makes me like Georgia a little bit more.
Yeah.
I'm still going to take the points. I still think it's close at the half, and Georgia ultimately wins this game because they have more ways to win. And I am with you that I don't know if Ole Miss can get to 24, 28 points in that range, and I think Georgia can. So 31-23 Georgia.
31-23, we agree. All right, we're going to get to our quad segment here momentarily. If you've made it this far, hit subscribe to the podcast. We would encourage you to do so if you've already done that. Leave us a rating, leave us a review. All that stuff helps. Tell your friends, follow us on social media. And, of course, if you're interested in furthering your commitment to the Verballerhood, going out to verballers.com and playing the Week 11 game.
Yeah, get those picks in. VERBALLERS.
15 picks in Run the Board this week. It's a loaded slate. You play for that $100 credit from our friends over at Pristine Auction.
I love that. Which quad are we starting with, Ty?
We're going to start with the afternoon quad.
Think about the heart.
Oh, I love that.
The passion, the love, the commitment, and the energy you're willing to put into it.
This is our very weird segment where we look through all the games in a particular window and we pick out the 4 to build your optimal quad.
Yes.
The quad. If you're watching at home, maybe you can build a quad on your own on your TV screen. Pick
that'd
the
be
4
cool.
games that you watch at the same time. This may or may not work out in real life, but these are the 4 games in this afternoon block that I think we are most interested in. We picked out these 4. We picked out Utah at Washington, Miami at Florida State, Oklahoma State at UCF, and Auburn at Arkansas. We can call out some of the other ones, but those are the 4 big ones that I think rose to the surface for you and I.
I agree. I'm right there with you.
Which of these 4 games interests you the most?
Probably Utah-Washington. We've got a playoff contender there. I mean, Florida State most certainly is as well, but I think where Miami has been makes this game a little bit less interesting. What's the number in this very moment? Like, it's over 2 touchdowns.
The Miami-Florida State game is currently at 14 points.
Oh, it's exactly. Okay.
Yeah. The Utah-Washington game is 9.5 points, which I think is a really interesting line. And just to be complete here, Oklahoma State -3 on the road in the bounce house against UCF, and Arkansas 2.5-point favorite at home.
I'd like to start with Utah-Washington because it's fascinating. Utah just played another playoff contender in Oregon and absolutely could not stay on the same field as the Ducks. Washington has one of the most explosive offenses in the country. We saw it on display fully against USC. grain of salt given the USC defensive status, and now no more Alex Grinch, which we'll get to. I like Utah to cover this game but not win. I don't think they have the firepower, but I think the way that Utah is built, running the ball and playing defense, I think they can be limiting enough. We saw Washington struggle against ASU. We saw them struggle against Stanford. We're not where we are on our worst days. We were not where we are on our best days. I think Washington is better than those weeks, but I'm still a little bit concerned that if Utah is good enough to get off the field 3 or 4 times, that this could be another squeaker for Washington.
Yeah.
I don't love their passing. I don't look Bryson Barnes as a top half of the Pac-12 quarterback, but I don't know if Trenton Bourguet and Ashton Daniels are either.
Like Utah plays such a different game than anybody else Washington has played.
They're built to limit.
Yeah.
And that's what would concern me as a Washington fan. And Washington, broke through last week, a big emotional win, prime time. I think that was a Fowler-Herbstreit game. So I don't know if there's a letdown factor because I think everybody in the Pac-12 takes Utah seriously, but I just think there's going to be a healthy dose of Utah running backs running into a Washington defense that has not been good against the run, which can eat a lot of clock. Yeah. Michael Penix has been mistake-prone these past few weeks. I still think in order to beat Washington, you need to be able to get to probably 30 points. And I just don't see it from Utah, but I think they can cover this spread. I think I'm going 31-21. No, sorry, that would be them covering 31-20, 30-23. How about that? By a touchdown.
I think the math works out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Utah can muddy it up. I think they can keep it somewhat close. If Washington had a defense that scared me,
yeah,
I would be worried that this is Oregon part 2. But you can score on these guys. It is not the same situation, and I would not be surprised if Utah dumped them. I really wouldn't. They just, again, play such a different brand of football than what Washington has seen these last couple weeks. And if Washington has stopped separating from teams the way they did early, Utah's not the kind of team you just want to let hang around. They're crafty like that. That's the kind of game they want to play.
Could be a bit soggy in Seattle, as Tim Buckley noted, in the Northwest.
Washington wins this game 34-29.
Okay, so we're both taking the points and agree.
We are. I'm taking Florida State over Miami.
Same.
Florida State won by 42 last year. Do we want to throw the records out here or no?
Man, it would be the only thing.
I feel like we don't in this game.
It would be the only thing that we can throw accurately involving Miami football these past few weeks.
It feels like Miami is on the verge of pack it up, pack it in.
Sayulita Saturday.
It feels like they are on the verge of it. TVD has 10 picks in his last 4 starts. He had 3 last week against NC State. They lost that game by 14. They weren't even close. It is a stretch for me to suddenly believe that Miami is going to get its act together and beat the schedule. And furthermore, these aren't the type of games on the Florida State side that concern me. I've said this time and again. The Boston College games, the Pitt games, those are the ones that worry me for Florida State, not the big guy, not a rivalry game. So I think Florida State destroys them.
TVD might not. I mean, look, I think he's beat up, but this marriage is not in a good place. And there is something to Mario Ball where if like things are going wrong, like if you strip a screw with a drill, you're like, okay, stop drilling. Okay, nothing's gonna happen. Stop. And I don't think Mario Cristobal stops. Like this is just what Miami is going to be this year, and it's going to take an off season. It's going to take a portal. It's going to take something to get into a different direction because what they've done, especially on the road this year, and now going against a Florida State team who, as we are home stretching to the playoff, where you're looking at Florida State's resume post LSU and saying to yourself, where is the truly impressive moment? And we've seen sort of the low points or the 3-quarter struggles or the, not beating Clemson until the very end, whatever. They can't have another one. They can't have another disappointing win. Right. And so I think this is a great opportunity for the Noles to run wild. So, yeah, I'm going to give these points here. I think they win by 3 touchdowns.
There's a lot of sharp money that came in on UCF plus the number, plus 3 points.
Yeah.
Bit of a letdown, obvious letdown spot on the road for Oklahoma State. traveling to UCF. They beat Oklahoma a week ago to close out the Bedlam series. I understand that bet. UCF's run defense, though, is so bad.
It's a bad matchup.
It's so bad. And Ollie Gordon's going to have like 250 yards in this game. So I think this is a high-scoring game. I think it's probably going to be fun as hell to watch. I understand the UCF bet. I understand I'm probably walking into a trap here, but I'm going to go Oklahoma State.
It does seem very trappy. It does.
It's extremely trappy, yeah.
You know, the post-Bedlam letdown. In a game that they probably should have lost, there were some pretty questionable offensive calls from Oklahoma that if they just were a little bit better in decision-making in those spots, that they win that game. Yeah, I'm gonna go Oklahoma State here too, because I think the case is much more in the universe rather than on the field. So I'm going Oklahoma State here. I'm sorry. I hate doing it because it's a great trap spot, but I'm doing it.
And we called out the Arkansas game.
Lock of the week.
Okay.
I am enamored with the idea that Arkansas got better by firing their offensive coordinator.
This is what the old Bill Simmons Ewing theory?
There's a little bit of Ewing.
He wasn't the best player, though. That's the Ewing theory, I think. Yeah, continue.
Yeah, Dan Enos got fired. Arkansas looked like a different team last week. They were faster. They were freer. And
it's like cleaning out your fridge, right? Doesn't it just improve your day when you I was like, why? Oh, come on. Why is this old salad here? This meat has gone bad. And then you just take a look at the fridge. You're like, all right, I'm living a life of order and cleanliness. That's the Dan Enos factor. He's the old meat.
Dan Enos is the old meat. Sure.
Yeah.
I like Arkansas here. I'm walking up Arkansas. It seems to me like there's value here. It's less than 3 points. Auburn's on the road. I think there's a chance that Arkansas builds some momentum here. And even though Auburn's a bowl team, I feel like Arkansas now has a renewed sense of purpose, and they look so much better that it'd be foolish to go against them.
They've won once since early September.
I know.
And you're all in.
All in.
They've lost close to quality teams, to Ole Miss, Alabama, A&M. Well, it was kind of A&M, but they lost close, obviously, if you remember, to LSU way back when. They're able to get over on Florida. I don't know. I think you're a little like. I think there is something about Auburn right now running the ball and playing defense that will travel. I'm going with Auburn here, actually.
No, you're nuts. You're nuts. Go Arkansas.
I think winning is a skill that Arkansas doesn't have.
Fair enough. Some other games, by the way, that we left out of this quad. I'll just rifle through these quick.
Yes.
You got the Rutgers Iowa game.
I have Rutgers.
Yeah, I have Rutgers too. We've got Minnesota Purdue.
I have Minnesota.
I've got Minnesota. Northwestern at Wisconsin, Dan. Let's do another one.
Lock of the week.
Oh, I'm curious to see where you're going here.
Double-digit dogs in the Big Ten West?
What has Wisconsin done to earn this?
Exactly. I saw this at 12 when I made the sheet. It's come down to 10.5. But you're going to lay 10 points in the Big Ten West? I don't think so. Give me Northwestern.
Garbage. Yeah.
Give me Northwestern plus the points for lock number 2.
Baylor, K-State?
K-State. Baylor's a mess.
Yeah, Baylor's been fighting. Their defense is such a mess that I think K-State covers this.
20.5.
That's a big number.
Pitt -3 at Cuse.
I have Pitt. Syracuse is Dunzo.
Syracuse is pack it up.
Sayulita.
Yeah. And Stanford at Oregon State. Oregon State -21.
It's Stanford's second consecutive road tilt, but I'm going to take those points. That's probably too big a number considering how Stanford has largely competed, the UCLA game notwithstanding, lately. So I'm going to take the points there. I still think Oregon State comfortably wins. I think that's too big a number.
Yeah, and give me Texas State -1 on the road at Coastal Carolina.
Ooh, okay.
I like Texas State. That's another one of my pet projects this year. I'm going to have to dig into Texas State at some point.
By the way, the Rutgers, is it still at 28.5? Rutgers, Iowa, the total?
29 at time of recording.
29 at time of recording. I still like the under there. I think somebody's winning that game 13-10.
Crazy. Absolute madness. All right. Shall we go to the night window? Night window number 1.
You have to achieve failure. You have to take it that far. Nobody wants to go that far. It's too scary.
Scary.
You know something? I got news for you. That's where winning is.
This guy's a maniac. 4 games here in this night quad numero uno. Texas at TCU. Texas favored by 7. Florida at LSU. LSU favored by 13.5. Mississippi State on the road at Texas A&M. A&M favored by 19. And West Virginia at Oklahoma. Oklahoma favored by 12.5 points, Dan.
TCU much better at home than they've been on the road. Texas still is with backup quarterback Malik Murphy, I believe.
Yep.
I think this number came down a bit too, right?
Yeah.
This was like 9 or 10 points, and now it's at around a touchdown.
I didn't see it come down that far. I've got it at 10 here, but
you just said 7 out loud.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's at 7:30. Texas is a 10-point road favorite at TCU. Yeah.
Doesn't this fit under one of your favorite tropes in picking games, de facto Super Bowl?
Big time.
De facto Super Bowl in Fort Worth as TCU and Texas part conference ways. I love TCU to cover and lose. Lose close. Texas in a bit of a letdown spot after coming away with the win against K-State. Yeah. I like TCU. Look, and also this is just what the universe demands of college football. TCU challenging or beating Texas. So I'm going Frogs here.
Quinn Ewers is throwing. He's not ready for game shape yet. At least not that I've seen. And even though I think Chandler Morris is nearing a return, they'll probably stick with Josh Hoover.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Everybody seems to like Josh Hoover. I'm with you. Texas wins. I'm not confident they're going to cover. The reason, though, that I'm picking them to win is for anybody who watched the TCU game last week, the defense against Texas Tech was annoyingly undisciplined.
Yeah.
It was such a hard watch, especially in the early part of that game. They kind of got their act together later. Came back, made it close. But I worry about that. I worry about Texas getting big plays against this defense because they did not look good to me. So I'm with you. Texas wins, but I think TCU covers at home.
All right, we agree.
What do you think about Florida at LSU? LSU favored by 13.5.
So it's LSU likely without Jaden Daniels?
Yes, he is in concussion protocol at time of recording.
I'm just going to err on the side of Florida, even though I don't love Florida here. I mean, it's going to be as nice a secondary to throw into as Florida's going to have this year, especially in a letdown spot. I think Florida covers this game. I don't think they have the juice to win this game.
No.
We like Garrett Nussmeier. He's going to launch the ball downfield a ton. Yeah. He's going to throw a bad pick, but if it is Garrett Nussmeier, they're going to score points, but they also might give away a couple. So I'm going to go Florida to cover in this one at home. Excuse me. Is Florida at home or is LSU at home?
LSU's at home.
LSU. So Florida on the road. I still think they can cover.
Yeah, I'm not thinking Florida's going to go there and win, but I definitely think there's a pretty strong likelihood they can cover just because I don't trust the LSU defense.
Yeah.
I mean, these types of games are as much about defense as offense. And what's LSU done to prove that they can cover this game against a, decent enough team in Florida? So
without Jaden Daniels. Yeah.
Without Jaden Daniels. Mississippi State at A&M. I also think it's pack it up, pack it in for Mississippi State. So I'm on A&M minus whatever.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm on A&M. Yeah, I think they can win this game by 3 touchdowns.
And then final game in this quad, 7 p.m. on Fox. It's West Virginia at Oklahoma.
I have West Virginia here.
Yeah, so do I.
It's too big a number because West Virginia competes. They beat them last year, which doesn't really matter. We're so far into this year at this point. But I think West Virginia competes. They've been good on the road this year. So I think they can, again, what's the most recent line?
12.5.
Yeah. I think they can lose this game by single digits. If not, if you put yourself in position to beat Oklahoma late, you got a great shot to do so. So I'm going West Virginia here.
I love when you phrase it as, I think they can lose this game by single digits.
Yeah, well, it's also like that's been one of my themes this year. It's like, what has this team done exactly? What has this team done against quality opponents to say, oh, yeah, they're way, way better, and they take care of business super consistently on offense that they can separate themselves? I don't see that with Oklahoma.
Yeah, this was another one where my gut was, I gotta go Oklahoma minus whatever. And then self-awareness is important in this world.
Always.
My picks have been bad. I look back, Oklahoma, 4 straight nail-biters. This is one they should win going away, but at the same time, I think West Virginia is better than expected. I think we've also been way too high on Oklahoma this year. A lot of folks got really high, myself included, on Oklahoma because of the way they were killing teams early, and then they beat Texas.
Yeah.
And then they've been shaky since that Texas game. So I'm with you. I go West Virginia plus the points here. I think they can keep it close.
I think Oklahoma might have a new offensive coordinator next year. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I don't think they can keep living like this. I don't think they can keep doing this to their fans. Continue.
Some other games that we left out of this quad: Cincinnati at Houston. Houston -2.5. Dan.
Yeah, I like Houston.
I like Houston. Cincy's the worst team in the Big 12. You know where I stand.
Yeah.
Duke at North Carolina. North Carolina favored by 14. I'm on Carolina.
I'm on Duke. I just think they can ugly this game up enough where, like, North Carolina hasn't fully separated themselves from good defenses this year. So I'm on Duke here, even with a backup quarterback.
Michigan State at Ohio. Ohio State -31.
I'd take minus anything against Michigan State at this point. I know they bounced back nicely last week. I like Ohio State pick.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't bet this game. I'd probably go Ohio State. Michigan State, speaking of pack it up.
Well, no, they won last week. Ty?
They're toast, man. Come on.
Okay. You saw Urban Meyer rumors?
More Urban Meyer rumors?
Yeah, I don't know why, but they keep coming out.
Georgia Southern -2.5 at Marshall.
Georgia Southern.
Give me Georgia Southern.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the NFL Network, no less.
On the NFL Network. That's right. Shall we go to the late night window next?
I'm ready, Ty.
Welcome to the pain zone is where we live.
This is a pain zone, the late night window.
In so many ways,
Ty. The games here, I guess we don't really have a quad.
No.
We kind of do. I don't know. USC at Oregon's the big one at 10:30. This one's going to be going on as we do the broadcast. We've also got Arizona State at UCLA. We've got Iowa State at BYU at 10:15, which I'm very interested in. And I'll also throw Fresno -1 on the road at San Jose State.
Okay.
Here. It's not in our graphic for the people that are watching the YouTube video, but I'm going to throw that one in here.
Of course.
Last second. Who you got in these games?
I think Oregon USC could be a bloodbath. I really do. I think Oregon might win this game by 35.
Really?
Yeah, looks USC moves on from Alex Grinch. I think it could be a situation where the game starts the way that USC Utah did, or even starts the way USC Washington did. But look, we see how USC after last week's collapse, like Caleb Williams can only do so much. And I don't think they've played a defense like Oregon's. And even if they come out and they're running the ball and they're pushing Oregon around a little bit, and Caleb Williams is buying himself time and Oregon can't get to him and he finds receivers downfield, I just think it has a ceiling of how long it can last. Like USC might be up 10-7 after the first quarter and lose 42-13.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, USC against quality defenses, as soon as, Notre Dame realized that USC receivers aren't going to immediately get open, that they could pressure Caleb Williams, that they could push around these receivers a little bit. I don't know. I think Oregon's a better version of Notre Dame's defense and way better on offense. This is going to be a terribly difficult place to play at night. I like Oregon big here. I think they cover.
Is this also a
yeah, this could be Sayulita Saturday.
Yeah. So Alex Grinch relieved of command. We've kind of referenced it here in passing a few times. No surprise there. Probably something they should have done before the season, but they wanted to give it another go.
Right.
USC's got 2 games left. This week at Oregon, next week at home against UCLA. So if you want to take the most optimistic view, you could say it's a reverse Enos.
Yeah.
Where they get rid of the guy, and now the new person who comes in or who's promoted from within to kind of coordinate this thing makes it easier to understand and simpler, and guys don't have to think, they can just play. But Oregon is not the team you want to work those kids
in Eugene, no.
Right. And they're favored by 15 here. That's a big number, but I think I'm with you. And the reason that I'm with you is something that I have not heard anyone mention. I alluded to it earlier in the year when Oregon played Colorado. What I like about Dan Lanning, and what I suspect Oregon fans like as well, he is just petty enough to want to outscore Washington against USC.
Oh, yeah.
He seems like that kind of dude, and if he were my coach, I would love it. I would love every second of that. I think they can do it here. I think it's something like 55-31. I think it's 200-plus yards on the ground for Bucky Irving. I'm I was inching ever so close to Oregon minus whatever lock of the week. I don't want to do that to you. So
Right.
I'm gonna. But
It's
I'm
USC
with
played
you.
Cal to a draw, right? 50-49. Oregon just beat Cal by 44 when it was kind of close early, and it was 63-19 was the final. That's the sort of rhythm of this game, I think. And look, you saw the exhaustion and the emotional exhaustion on Caleb Williams after the game. I just think they put all of their eggs into like, Washington doesn't have a great defense. It's at home. We can win this game. And then they lose that game. I just think you look at the comments of the interim DCs for USC this week where they were just like, we got to make sure the guys are aligned and, know where to go. And you're like, that's not going to be great.
You're talking
against
alignment.
Oregon.
Alignment in week 11 is not a good.
No.
That's not a good formula.
So, no, Oregon big. Next game?
Yeah, we agree. Arizona State, UCLA, I'm curious your take here. UCLA is favored by 17. ASU's entire team is hurt. The UCLA quarterback situation is kind of a mess. They've got some injuries there as well. I don't have a good reason to
I think
wanna bet
Dante Moore
ASU.
and Ethan Garbers are hurt for UCLA right now as of the time of this recording.
I don't have a good reason to want to bet ASU, but it feels like they're scrappy enough to somehow find a way to keep this within that number.
UCLA, I think, is still going to roll. What's the number again?
17.
Yeah, I think UCLA is built to just hand the ball off and succeed against ASU.
Okay.
And get a ton of stops.
I'll
If
go
it's
ASU. I don't
Jacob Conover. Who's starting for ASU?
know. I guess it's Jacob Conover, yeah.
Yeah. Utah was, 55-3 last week? UCLA can win this game 28-7. Sure.
The 10-15 game is really interesting to me between Iowa State and BYU.
Okay.
This line was higher. It's come down. It's under a touchdown now in favor of Iowa State. I don't like this spot for them at all. I don't like it at all, not one bit. It is 6.5 on the road with Texas on deck. So that is clearly going to be the de facto championship game.
Yeah.
I'm curious on the BYU side about Jake Retzlaff, their junior college transfer who started last week. Keaton Slovis injured. I actually thought he looked really good. I think if you look at like adjusted completion percentage and stuff like that, he was better than the box score indicates. They lost by 30.
I was going to say they lost 37-7.
They lost by 30. But I think longer term they may have something there. If I felt better about BYU, I would look at this game and I'd be like, home dog of the week. But I don't know where the bottom is there. I feel like they're really bad, and they've been really bad, progressively so throughout the course of the year. So I'm going to go Iowa State minus whatever.
Yeah, I got Iowa State 28-10 in this one. I still don't trust the BYU offense at all. So, yeah, 28-10.
The final one, it's not in the graphic, but the final one, I'll just lock this one up too. Let's go 3 locks.
Of the week.
Triple.
Yeah. Fresno. Give me Fresno -1 at San Jose State. I think they're way better than San Jose State. And I know there's some questions about, is Mikey Keene going to play? What's the deal there? I just think Fresno's the better team. I know this is a rivalry game. Maybe you throw the records out, but I don't think San Jose State's good. I know Fresno is not a perfect team, but they're a 1-loss team. They've been in, I think, far tougher matchups than this one. And I just like them in the spot. I don't really get the point spread.
I guess an emotional win over Boise State, but the rest of Fresno's season is great. I think they just need to hand the ball off. They haven't been a great rushing team this year, but hand the ball off, and you should be able to succeed against Spartans.
I agree. Okay. The other 2 games here that I'll call out quickly in the late window, and then we're going to do the early window and move on.
Yes.
And close the show out. New Mexico at Boise. Boise's favored by 25. I don't know what Boise's done to be favored by 25
Agree.
against anybody. So
But New Mexico just fired, I think, their offensive coordinator. Continue.
Also true, but
Yeah.
I'm on New Mexico. And Air Force at Hawaii. Also the late window. I don't really have a lean that game one way or the other. The point spread. Don't even have the point spread in front of me. But Air Force coming off the loss would expect that they try to exact some revenge here in this game against Hawaii.
Okay.
Let's go to the last window, early window.
The early window, yeah.
Is how bad do you really want legs?
How bad do you want those quads, Dan?
I want them more than I want anything in life, Ty.
4 games in this quad. Alabama -10.5 at Kentucky. High noon on ESPN. Texas Tech on the road at Kansas. Kansas favored by 4. Georgia Tech at Clemson. Clemson favored by 14.5. And then we got Arizona at Colorado. Dan, Arizona, a 10.5-point road favorite.
Woo!
Who you got in these? That's a 2:00 game, by the way, so not exactly
Early-ish.
in that noon window, but early enough. Yeah. Who do you got here?
Okay, so I have Arizona over Colorado after Colorado's offense in the Pat Shurmur era looks awful. I like the road teams largely in this one. I like Georgia Tech against Clemson. Again, this is a what have you done to earn a double-digit, let alone 2-touchdown plus line.
Yeah.
Clemson, especially in a letdown spot after sneaking by Notre Dame. I think Georgia Tech can cover this game. I think they're good enough on offense to score some points. Clemson's strength is still their defense. I like Kansas over Texas Tech. I think they can run on Texas Tech. I like Bama on the road against Kentucky. I think Kentucky all year long has sort of been pretenders that are counting on a good to very good defense, but the Devin Leary offense, the El Ray offense, because I still think Ray Davis is good, but I don't think they're gamers on offense. So I think Alabama, Jalen Milroe has been a little bit better on the road for the Tide. And look, if we've learned anything about the Alabama defense, they're going to go after the opposing team's quarterback. Dallas Turner specifically will. And then it becomes even worse. So I think this Alabama defense is really rounding into impressive shape. So give me the Tide big against Kentucky.
Yeah, this is the Alabama game is the Jake Locker of the week, by the way.
Lock of the week.
Jake, our social media guy, has been helping us this year, has been nails on pretty much. He pushed last week. He took Ole Miss.
Yeah.
But he was like, yeah, I think Alabama can name its number here. I'm in agreement. I won't make it a lock. I won't play the sound again. I don't want to jinx him. But even though Devin Leary's looked a little better, the Alabama offense has looked a lot better.
Yeah.
And I worry for the sake of Kentucky that Alabama's figured its offense out and that Jalen Milroe is starting to ascend to something a little bit greater. Also, man, screw Kentucky. Kentucky. I've been waiting all year for Kentucky to rise to the moment.
Yeah.
To rise to the moment and overperform against somebody way better than them. They just never do. So I'm with you. I'm on Alabama minus the number.
Alabama's on a glide path at this point, right? It's what, Kentucky, Chattanooga, Auburn?
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. I'm on Texas Tech with the points at Kansas because I'm just worried about the Kansas defense. If Kansas is getting points as they were in that Oklahoma game, I feel differently than a spot like this where they're asked to cover a point spread, even if it's under a touchdown.
Right. All right.
I'm on Tech. I'm on Tech with Georgia Tech with you because why not? And do I want to do a fourth lock?
Oh, my God. The quad lock for the quad father.
Lock of the week.
Let's do it. Arizona minus whatever at Colorado.
Arizona's had like a run of challenging, emotional, dramatic games.
Just an all-time heater for the Cats, but
I don't think Colorado's the offense to make them pay. Arizona's defense is pretty good.
Arizona's defense is pretty good. Their offense is pretty good. Colorado might be, I won't rub salt in the wound here, but speaking of pack it up, pack it in, there could be a pack it up, pack it in situation for Colorado as well.
By the way, T-Mac for Arizona, yeah. I told you it hurt when he flipped his commitment from Oregon to Arizona. I told you, day one at Arizona, this dude's going to be something else. Guess what? Breaking news. He is something else. He is incredible. There are moments where he looks like the clear best receiver in a loaded receiver conference. He is so sure-handed and makes so many athletic plays. Like, he seems like a no-brainer first-round type receiver at this point. He's incredible. So stay up late or find some sort of illegal stream to watch Arizona football games. He's great. Continue.
All right, I agree. So some other games here. You want to speed run these? Give me your picks. Virginia Tech minus 1.5 at Boston College.
I'm not abandoning Virginia Tech. I'm going Hokies here. I think they can move the ball a little bit against Boston College. So I have them winning on the road.
9-3 goals for me.
Okay.
Boston College. But they were favored, then it flipped to Virginia Tech. NC State minus 2.5 on the road at Wake.
NC State.
Yeah, this is a CW
MJ Morris
game.
redshirting.
MJ Morris redshirting, which is kind of a weird thing. But this is a CW game. So I'm going to go Wake Forest. These games are weird on the CW. Indiana at Illinois. Illinois favored by 6.5 points.
I do not like Illinois. I like Indiana here. I think Indiana's been low-key competitive this year. even though their offense has been a nightmare, I still like Indiana to cover. Again, it's a Big Ten West team favored by a healthy amount of points. No, Indiana.
I'm going to go Illinois. I think Indiana's bad. And I was high on Indiana.
They just beat Wisconsin like an hour and a half ago.
Yeah, and I just took the points for Northwestern against Wisconsin as one of my locks.
Okay.
Maryland minus 2.5 at Nebraska.
Nebraska. What has Maryland done?
I'm going to go Maryland.
Nebraska, good defense at home and a tough place to play. Maryland reeling. No, Nebraska.
South Carolina minus 14 at home against Vandy.
What has South Carolina done? They just beat Jacksonville State by 10.
All right.
I'm going Vandy.
I'll go South Carolina. I'll pose you once more. And Tulsa.
Pushing Tulsa lately. I'm going Tulane here. I think they can cover this.
Yeah, I think I'm with you.
Although they've let teams sneak back in, but I don't think Tulsa's sneaking up on anybody.
I agree.
That's it.
I agree. Okay. That's all I have. I have no more games here.
All right. Can I make a request?
Please.
Can you drop that big, stanky, quivering, gyrating drum and fife?
We've got some big-time action here in the Pat League this week.
Well, it would have been bigger if Lafayette could hold up its end of the bargain.
12 o'clock, CBS Sports Network, Holy Cross at 6-3, squaring off against the Army Black Knights. 3-6.
This is big. I'm going Army here. Although in a letdown spot. Let's go Holy Cross. Let's
Holy
go
Cross. Come on, man.
Yeah,
gotta
big
go Holy
spot.
Cross.
Yep.
12:30. Here's the big guy.
Yeah.
This is Fordham, 6-3. This is Lafayette now, 7-2 after the loss a week ago. I think we go Fordham here.
That puts them in control of getting a playoff spot.
Yeah, I think we go Fordham.
I'm going Lafayette. Come on. I'm not wavering.
1 o'clock, Georgetown, 4-5 on the road at Bucknell, 3-6. Georgetown away from multi-sport field.
That's okay.
So
The feisty Hoyas here.
I'm going Nellies.
Give me Georgetown.
It pains me. I go Nellies.
Turncoat.
Finally, 1 p.m. Lehigh 2-7 at Colgate. It's 4-5. Lehigh is capital B bad.
Is your wife traveling to this game? Wife and her family? They went last week.
Have not asked her if what their travel plans are.
Not going to Hamilton?
Not sure. It's beautiful this time of year with the foliage, but
Of course. Did they win last week?
No,
With Solid Wife Kate there?
no, they were up and then they choked and they lost.
That's right.
Yeah, lost the Holy Cross.
So that's a big letdown spot with victory in its grasp last week. Give me the Gators big.
My fantasy thing, if there is such thing, we move quickly through the Alabama game,
Mm-hmm.
but I believe that is a Joe Tessitore game
Okay.
this week. I want Joe Tess to call out Zombie Alabama.
Okay. You
I
want
want
him
him
to
to do
call.
it.
So
Joe
you're not.
Tess-
This isn't a fantasy thing. This is a demand of yours.
This is sort of a cross between a fantasy thing and a secret verbal. I believe Joe Tess follows us. So if Joe Tess is listening, if Joe Tess sees, I'm going to post this on social media.
Zombie Alabama.
We're just going to go right at him. Right at him. We've done it before. We'll do it again. I want a Zombie Alabama call out because I believe that we are getting Zombie Alabama right now.
If I gave you an over-under of 25 minutes in the Florida LSU matchup to either have a reference to or a clip of the shoe being thrown 3 years ago, over-under.
Under.
I think
Definitely.
it's under.
It might happen in the first 4
No
minutes.
love lost between these two.
It might
That would
happen
be
in
my
the first
fantasy thing.
4 minutes, Dan.
Take the under. Yeah.
There you go. That does it. Shall we get to our final, most important segment of this
Oh
here
my
show?
God. My favorite.
Tie versus the world.
Die Welt, le monde, el mundo, Świat. Tie versus the world.
Presented by DraftKings Sportsbook.
Alrighty, Dan, here's what we got.
Yeah.
You know where I stand. I made a bunch of locks this week. Here are the ones that I'm going to put on the graphic. Okay. You know about Northwestern plus 10.5. You know about Fresno -1. You know about Arizona minus 10.5. I'm not going to put the Alabama game on there. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that to our good friend Jake. I'm going to put Michigan minus 4.5 though.
Okay.
Michigan minus 4.5 is like my blood bank lock of the year because there is no way, there is no universe for anybody who's watched college football this year or really any other year in which Penn State wins this game. I don't understand why people are betting on Penn State. I don't get it. If
Right.
you've watched the games the way you and I have, what are you betting on?
You're betting on the fact that you don't believe, and rightfully so, that Michigan has played anybody, and that they're going to be in for a rude awakening when they go to State College.
That is just not a real argument to me.
Of course it's not, but I'm saying that's
not a real
the
argument. That is a Twitter creation. That is something that gets clicks. That is not for people who watched any of Penn State play this year.
Here would be my rationalization. My rationalization is that it's one of my central tenets, my life philosophies, to take a good defense as an underdog at home in a difficult place to play, which this very much will be a difficult place to play. You've been at huge Penn State games. You know what it's like against Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State when they're good. You understand that. And so a good defense at home with a frenzied crowd behind them as an underdog, to me, fits nicely within the Altar of Dan reasoning system. That's why.
But you took Michigan too.
I know I did. I'm just saying too. That was my consideration, that if you came out here and said, I like Penn State's defense at home as an underdog with a frenzied crowd, I'd say I have nothing to counter that because I think that is sound reasoning.
41-17 last year. I think they're worse on defense slightly this year, and I think the line has gotten worse on offense this year. They can't run it as well. The passing game is in flux. Totally. They might be just in general a worse team than they were last year when they got throttled. And this is basically the same Michigan team. I don't know if Harbaugh will be there. If Harbaugh's not there, maybe that changes things for you. It doesn't for me.
Okay.
So my 4 picks are Michigan -4.5, Northwestern +10.5, Fresno -1, and Arizona -10.5 against Colorado. That brings us to the parlay. So you know that I called out Arkansas as one of the picks that I also loved this week. I feel very confident this week, Dan. Just saying, throwing it out there. I am including Arkansas in something that I'm calling the AAA parlay.
I love this.
Okay. It is 3 teams. I've adjusted some of the point spreads. Arkansas -2.5. Love Arkansas -2.5 at home against Auburn. I've got Alabama -9.5 on the road at Kentucky, bringing that line down just a little bit. And the aforementioned Arizona Wildcats squaring off against Colorado brought that line down a little bit as well to 9.5. So the AAA parlay is Arkansas -2.5, Alabama -9.5, Arizona -9.5.
I like that AAA parlay. It makes you sound like the Wolf of Wall Street.
Jordan
Belfort, where you're just like, ma'am, do I have an interesting the AAA tie parlay? Like, it's great. I think those are good picks. Well, I have nothing to offer.
You at least understand the logic there.
Of course I do.
You understand the logic there. So go on out to DraftKings Sportsbook and make those bets if you are interested in joining Team Ty. Also want to give a shout out to basketball. Hello, basketball is back, Dan.
I love that.
DraftKings is an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Basketball is obviously more fun when you can get in on the action. So go on out and download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the code SOLID. New customers can get $200 in bonus bets instantly for betting just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code SOLID. The crown is yours, Dan.
That's all I have, Ty. I can't wait for Week 11.
College football, Week 11, going out to verballers.com. Check out our Patreon. If you're just finding the show, we would encourage you to hit subscribe or follow. And we would love to hear from you as ever at 855-VERBAL-3. We will play our favorite messages as part of the reaction campfire that we record late into the night.
What is it? What time? What time?
Midnight.
Midnight Eastern time. The reaction campfire Saturday night, a.k.a. Saturday Night Tie. I'm going to feel all sorts of emotions this week because Oregon USC is happening as we're recording.
This is great. This is great. Stream of consciousness, Dan.
Love it.
For that guy over there, my good friend Dan, for myself, Ty Hillenbrand, thanks for downloading, for listening, for supporting the show. We'll talk to y'all after college football Week 11. Stay solid.
Peace.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See dkng.co/football for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit